Uh, I'm ready to go if you guys are. Well, I just wanted to just say hello and thank you guys for coming out. We're really excited to get started with training camp. As you can see, we just had our first walkthrough, started with meetings last night, and just excited to get going and excited to see you all. So whoever's first. Yep, go ahead.
Can you describe just how important Danielle is to this defense, and can you imagine them not having him versus having him?
I mean, I think Danielle's a phenomenal player. He's a guy who's had a lot of great success over the course of his career. An impact player who brings an element of rush and just overall solid play, run, pass. He's somebody that, offensively, you've got to, take into account where he's at so he doesn't, cause havoc, to the game offensively. So I think he's a great player. Look forward to working with him. He was here. He's been here. I met with him individually yesterday. That was a good conversation, and excited to work with him.
How do you think it will be to get him up to speed in your defense, though?
I think he's, veteran players. They've seen a lot of defense. When it, coverages, fronts, stunts. I think terminology will probably be the one thing that's a little bit different, maybe, but just. Some of it is actually, there's some crossover from, things he's heard in the past. So I don't think it'll take long for him to get up to speed. At the end of the day, we're telling him to go get the quarterback. There's really not much to that. So I think he'd be just fine.
What will Harrison Smith provide you in your defense?
Harrison, he is, that veteran presence, that leadership. This is someone who's played a lot of football over the course of his career, been in a lot of situations, and can just be a voice for the younger players because he's been through it. It's one thing for a coach to say, hey, the situation is gonna, it's gonna arise like this or it's gonna happen like this. It's another thing for the guy sitting in the locker next to you to say, hey, in 2015, I was in the game and they had a player like, what coaches talk about, or we had a situation or a game plan similar to this and it worked like this, or, here are the things we could have done better. I think that voice, I think it's very important for us defensively. Plus, he's a very good player. He's made a lot of plays over the course of his career. He's smart, he's tough. He brings leadership. I'm excited to have him and work with him.
Was that your first meeting with Danielle yesterday, or have you been able to have any kind of communication?
We've had communication since I've gotten here. I'm not going to get into those exact times, places, but yeah, it's not the first time we've connected. Look, he's a great human being. I was excited to meet him and then get to know him, and I've gotten to know him over the course of the last few months over some conversations, and so no, it wasn't the first time.
How competitive do you expect this quarterback room to be?
One more time.
How competitive do you expect this quarterback room to be?
Cornerback. Okay, I thought you said quarterback. I was like, that. We could talk quarterbacks if you want, but cornerback. I mean, look, it's going to be a competitive camp. We've got a lot of guys who, showed well in the spring, have done well in meetings, walked through in our spring practices, and they've come back ready to go. I mean, our first couple meetings and this walkthrough today have been solid. When you're talking about Murph, when you're talking about Caleb, when you're talking about Booth, Mackay, Joanne. I mean, it's a group. It's going to be a competitive camp. I expect these guys to, compete in the meetings, compete in the walkthrough, compete in practice, compete in the preseason games, obviously. And at the end of the day, I will, sit down with Kwesi and KO and try to put the best group out there.
Brian, from your experience, what are the keys to making a defense work in your first place in a first time with the new team when the system is basically brand new to most of the guys?
I think that's not going to be different from an answer I'd give if it's a place I've been in at a long time. I think you need great communication, you need camaraderie amongst the group. The best defenses I've been a part of, There've been real good relationships throughout that group, and then you got to execute. And you have to be able to communicate and be versatile and flexible, make in-game adjustments, and those things we'll build on over the course of training camp. We'll work towards those things. You don't do it all on day one. You can't. But those teams are always fundamentally sound. To me, I just that's standard operating procedure. You got to be fundamentally sound: footwork, hand placement, communication, things of that nature. You do all those things, you give yourself a chance. And those are kind of some of the core principles from my standpoint as far as having solid defense.
Brian, as you've got more familiar with what you have here, what would you say going at the start of training camp is your top one or two concerns about like this defense? Like, what do you need to do in order to do what it is you do?
I think this early, everything you're trying to make sure you're right with it all. Getting 11 guys on the field, getting the call in, getting the front correct, and offenses in this league, on every snap there's movement. So they move the Y, they move a receiver, they jet motion, they explode to empty. A lot of it is just, making sure we can handle the various and myriad of formations that the offense gives us. And then, once we see exactly what it is, be able to play our technique and fundamentals so that we can execute one play at a time. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm concerned with everything. There's not a part of the defense where we're not going to, coach our butts off to make sure it's right, whether it's defeating blocks, tackling, pursuit to the football, playing the deep ball. I mean, all of it is important.
I guess talk maybe more like talent, experience, durability, those concerns. I feel like you got all that.
I think we got a talented group. I think Kwesi and Akeo have done a good job of putting this group together. It's also a group that's or a training camp that I think is going to be very competitive. There's a lot of competition amongst the groups. We'll let that competition play out here on the field in the meetings and the walkthrough, and obviously in the preseason games. And I'm excited to work with each one of these guys.
Harrison Smith was talking about Josh Metellus as a very smart player and said that he can coach the defense if he wants to. I guess, how does football IQ translate? Where does that show up? What's the biggest benefit of it for someone like Josh who does have that as part of his game?
Well, I think I like to think I have a pretty good football IQ, but I couldn't play. So Josh is talented, and he showed that over the course of his career. He showed that in OTAs. He's a smart player. We got a lot of smart players. But yeah, football IQ, it helps you if you want to make checks or make adjustments, or like I talked about with just offensive football in general, just being able to put yourself in the most advantageous position based on what they give you. You need it, but we need guys who can play, who can run, who can hit, who can tackle, who can get off blocks. I put more of a premium on those things.
A guy has, how quickly can you pick up as a coach when a player has high football IQ?
It's pretty evident pretty early. I think some guys just learn conceptually. All right, so this is this coverage, that's coverage, this is this front, that's that stunt or that blitz. I heard it differently, but if that guy goes in, I got to go out. I mean, there's just things conceptually that you can see versus someone who's memorizing it. And in that instance, he can handle his job, but he doesn't know what else is going on, in some other spots, which, those players play too. So it's about putting a group together, and that's what training camp's all about.
Is it to evaluate guys as each year it seems like there's less and less true contact in training camp, where mostly it's no contact until you start getting into games and maybe even the joint practices. How hard is it to evaluate game speed, game contact throughout a training camp now?
That's a great question. But, I'm never one to make excuses about, the schedule. We got to make it work within the confines of the practices that we have. And those padded practices and those joint practices and those games are important because, they're, one or two or however many there are of a limited number of opportunities to see the game the way it's played on Sundays. So all of it counts, and is there more emphasis on those padded days to see what a guy really can do? The short answer is yes. So the guys know that. They know they have to perform with pads on. The name of the game is, defeating blocks, tackling well, blocking guys and breaking tackles. I mean, that's basically football in a nutshell. So, offensively, defensively in the kicking game, when those opportunities arise where we can see that in full, in full clothes or full uniform, we try to take advantage of that as a team and obviously evaluate that portion, with greater scrutiny, intensity, and it's a big part of the evaluation.
Last two questions.
What do you think will be the biggest difference between how you guys played this year and what you've seen on film as you've evaluated what you have from last year's defense?
I'm focused on, this group today. I think I try to take things one day at a time. That's always kind of been my mindset, and just, coach them as well as I can on the fundamentals, on the techniques. I really, you're going to hear me say that over and over again. Those are things I truly believe in. As far as this year or last year, this year I'm just focused on these guys. This year, this group, their ability to, play fast, play physical, and really enjoy playing the game and having fun out there. I mean, that's a big part of it as far as playing good defense. The good defenses I've been around, they have a lot of fun, So we're going to try to do that, out here in this training camp. And, we had a meeting last night. I'm not Mr. Rah-Rah fun guy, as you guys probably can tell, but, I try to have my fun through the players, and hopefully, that's a point of emphasis, and hopefully we're doing that through training camp and in preseason games and, all the way across the board.
Last one.
Did you watch the Netflix Quarterback, and from a defensive perspective, did you glean anything from it, or is it just like, yeah, I already knew that, or?
I'm going to disappoint you. I didn't watch it. So I took my family, my wife, Jenny, and our 3 kids. We went to Europe this summer. So when it came out, we were in Paris, Spain, went to a few cities in Spain, and then we were in Morocco for a week. So it came out, and I was probably riding a camel or something. So, I haven't gotten a chance to. And then I got back, and we were right into it. So I got that on the docket for a flight. We'll download all those and take a look. I'll answer that once I watch it.